Today's forum is sponsored by Proforma Graphic Design, represented today by Jeff Skinner and Brett Morrow and their associates. So thank you, gentlemen. And I'm editing the next line as well. Yeah, about the other surprise. Let me tell you that there is a complete biography of all the speakers in your program today, so I'll just give some brief introductions. Our first panelist, and gentlemen, you can come to the stage as I read this. Our first panelist is the founder and president of M3 Conference, which is a national mobile development, UX, and design conference. Please welcome Tim Hibner. Our second panelist is a developer with Microsoft. Please welcome Jeff Blankenberg. Next up is the network architect for the Ohio Society of CPAs. Welcome, Mr. Muchmore. Somehow the name didn't get in. Sorry. And our moderator is currently a partner with Quick Solutions. Previously, he was the founder and CEO of Groundwork Group. Please welcome John Shosky. Got it. On behalf of our sponsor, Proforma Graphic Design and the Columbus Metropolitan Club, please welcome all of our panelists. John, the microphone is yours. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. I wasn't sure if you were clapping for me or that he pronounced my name right. But I'll take the name right. That's good. There's not that many times that occurs. Okay, so we have about 35 minutes of time. And we're going to have hopefully an interactive discussion up here, and there will be some time for questions the last about 15 minutes of the program. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask the panelists first to kind of give a general overview of the mobile world and the device world, the gadget world, kind of what's going on now. And then we're going to move into a little bit more of a platform discussion. I was thinking about mixing it up and having the Windows guy talk about Apple and the Android guy talk about, we're not going to do that. So we'll have an Android discussion as well as Apple as well as Windows. We'll do that for about 10 minutes. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about the devices and kind of what's hot and what's not hot and kind of what's going on. And then we'll wrap it up with asking these three folks to give their thoughts on kind of where this market is going, kind of where in the future they believe the the tech gadget world is going. Okay, with that being said, I think I want to share a little bit of context here. Is that two of my three boys are in college, and on average, an average college student now brings 6 devices that are internet enabled with them to college. 6 devices. So like a laptop, a tablet, a phone, an e-reader, an iPod, gaming device. So just if you kind of step back and think about the proliferation of technology into our world, that's pretty significant when you think about 6 types of devices that are now average what comes with it. So I think it's a very relevant topic. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Tim to first talk a little bit about, and then again, as we go through, Jeff and Damon will add on, and we'll kind of go back and forth here. But talk a little bit about, what you see kind of in the market right now and what's going on, and give your view on the kind of the proliferation of tech devices.
Yeah, sure, John. One of the things that's going on right now is there's so many different devices out there, so many different tablets to choose from, and smartphones and platforms. It's kind of, what do you pick? There's some big players that started off with Apple. Apple obviously reinvented the smartphone and with the iPad and also with the iPod. And one of the things that made them so successful is they didn't really ignore the content part of it. So they made good investments in iTunes and partnership with media companies to kind of bring more media to devices. And really what we're seeing moving forward is we're seeing devices that can share all that content all over the place, including not just mobile devices, but your television, your computer, and that sort of thing. But they're not the only game in town right now. You know, Google has made great strides with content in their area and devices and that sort of thing over the last few years. I think the amount of Google devices in current activation is in the millions. And, you know, that's obviously because, you know, there's multiple carriers that support it, as well as, you know, multiple versions of phone and hardware manufacturers, opposed to where Apple is their hardware manufacturer. So really I see, you know, it's about sharing content on multiple things, and purpose-driven devices. Like your phone really kind of will end up being your digital identity in the future, you know. Right now your phone probably has a better GPS than your car if you have a GPS in your car. Although there's a funny story about that. I'll save that for when we're getting into the funny story part. But don't trust Google Maps, especially when you're going to the mountains of West Virginia on a golf trip. You'll end up, in the middle of nowhere, in the dark, and lose your cell phone signal, and then you're in real trouble. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was a good one. So I guess I'll move over to Jeff and let him share.
No, so I think I agree with you a lot. So that when we look at devices and all the things that are out there, what really comes down to is, how do I get my stuff? You have your files, and you have your photos, and you have all of these other things, and it's amazing to me. We've had cell phones and smartphones for years now, and it's only recently that we've started having the technology think about our stuff for us, right? So every time I take a picture on my phone, it's also saved to a private website. No one can see it, but I know that every single time I take a picture, it's saved. And where I think we're moving into, and you see this a lot, I mean, people are buying a new iPad every year, or a new tablet or new phone or whatever every year. Even though their contract doesn't support it, they're still shelling out the money to get the new one, whatever it is. We're seeing devices become disposable. And all of this is really because of where we've moved in the cloud, right? I mean, we have this internet-enabled everything. We watch TV on the internet now. We download our music from the internet. Everything comes from the cloud. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I've seen shift recently, that's making this proliferation of devices so common. And so it's very easy to pick up a cool device and use it for a year, and then have almost a stress-free experience with throwing that one away, or giving it to your kid, or having it break, and picking up another one for $100, a couple $100, a really low price for a computer, and grabbing a new one and entering your account, and immediately you now have all of your stuff again. All your apps are there, all your music, all your data, all the stuff you care about. You don't really care about the device. You care about what it does with your stuff. And I think that's going to be the shift that you see over the next coming years. It's going to become more and more important about how easy it is to move your data from one thing to another.
Damon.
I would agree as well. And we're also seeing that it's easier to move from different style of devices too. So it's getting a lot easier to move from Apple to Android to Microsoft across the board, because a lot of the developers are making their applications for all three of them now. And so you can easily go from one to the other. So if you don't like one, you pick up another one. Oh, this one's got a better experience for me. I'm going to use this. Your data is always available because you've got places like Dropbox and things like that that work across the board. So no matter where you go, no matter what you're using, whether it's your computer or your phone, you're still going to have access to your data.
Very good. Now, before we dive a little bit into the more platform discussion, let's talk a little bit about the device that you have, Jeff, okay? And I know we're going to talk about devices in more specifics, but why don't you give a feel to the audience that the kind of where Microsoft is going related to that device?
Sure. So you guys, I'm not going to do it up here. You've seen commercials where people are dancing around and swinging their machines around. This is called a Microsoft Surface. You've seen it. It has the keyboard that kind of snaps on. Everybody's seen the commercials on TV. That's what this device is. It's relatively new. It runs Windows RT, if you guys have heard of that. And I think the one opportunity you're giving me here is to talk about the difference between Windows 8 and Windows RT. Yes. Can I take that time here? This is the one big distinction I want to make sure everyone is aware of. This is a Surface. You'll often hear it referred to as a Surface RT. It's got the neat kickstand and all that stuff built in. But what's different about this device versus a normal computer that you would traditionally buy is that it is much more like you would think of an iPad than you would think of a full-blown PC. There is a store, it has apps, it has the apps you want, but the only thing that runs on a device like this are the apps that came from the store. Now that being said, it still runs full versions of Office, so I have Word and PowerPoint and Excel and all those kinds of things on here. And this is a really great consumption device like an iPad is. But when you go out to buy a copy of Quicken and you're like, oh, I have a Surface, I'll just load Quicken on there. Well, Quicken hasn't made an app for this yet, and until they do, you can't run Quicken on a device like this. So when you are looking at new computers, especially around this time of the year, Windows 8, if you hear Windows 8, that is a full-blown computer. Laptop does all the stuff you normally expect it to do. It can run all the software that you're running on Windows 7 or XP today. But an RT device, just to be clear, is far more like an iPad than anything else, where there's a marketplace, you can buy apps that run or download free apps to the device. But that's an important distinction, because I know that's a big point of confusion for most people. They see this Surface device for $400, $500, and they're like, oh, I can get an awesome tablet computer for that price. Well, you can, but you're also not, you're not going to run Photoshop on this or something like that. So thanks for that opportunity.
So Tim, you're the founder of M3. Why don't you explain what that is and how that relates to the mobile world?
Yeah, sure. So M3, actually, we started off saying M cubed because really the slogan is around, Jeff, you're on the planning committee, help me out with this.
It's the 3 pillars of the mobility world. You've got design, you have development, and you have the business side of building apps.
Right. So we really wanted to bring it all together and kind of increase awareness. Starting here in Central Ohio, Jeff is actually on our planning committee / board. We had the idea of, focusing on not just one, but all the platforms. So it focuses from a development perspective on iOS, Android, as well as Windows, and the mobile web. And then in addition to that, bringing the design aspect in, and also business and marketing. So it's about 30 sessions, and we have 2 keynotes. We've done it twice. The first year, it was 1 day, and the second year we actually had all-day boot camps to where you could come and do a design session with a design instructor and learn kind of hands-on how to do that sort of thing, or you could learn like 101 iOS development or 101 Android development. And we had, it was almost 300 people the second year for both days. So it's been pretty successful, and we've enjoyed doing it. So.
Damon works with a lot of professional organizations, right, through the Association of CPAs. So from your perspective, Damon, what's kind of out there as it relates to the professionals are using as it relates to devices right now?
Well, amazingly enough, CPAs are picking up all these various different devices, and they're using them in lots of different places. The iPads and the Android tablets, things like that, they're finding that these are really convenient to take to client sites and collect information, then bring it back to the office, and because they can transfer that data easily, they can get that information back into their network and do their work that they need to do. The smartphones, same thing. They're using those. Some of them are really good at that. Some of them have taken to the ultra portables. I've also had reports from a few people through some of our forums that the Surface tablet has been a very useful device when it comes to going to client sites and taking in information and then transferring it back to their networks.
Very good. The reason I was kind of asking that is my wife is a CPA, and so here I think it's kind of funny. She has a really nice high-end Apple device, right, for her work, but then she has the old school cell phone and will not go to a smartphone whatsoever. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the platforms. All right, so we're going to get into and spend a little bit of time, where the platforms are at this point in time, and then also if you can share with the audience kind of a little known feature or tip, or maybe a couple tips that would be relevant to someone who's focused on a certain platform. So Jeff, why don't you start with, I'd love to ask you about Apple, but I can't, so we'll talk about the Windows platform.
Apple's got some great products. I'd be happy to talk about them.
That's right, no, go ahead.
So as far as Microsoft goes, what we're really talking about is the entire ecosystem around what Microsoft offers to consumers, right? We have things like the Xbox, which there's someone in the room right now that goes, Microsoft makes the Xbox? Yeah, we do. Most people don't realize that because we purposely don't advertise that fact. The Xbox is cool, Microsoft not always as much. And so if you look at our entire ecosystem, though, we have the Xbox, we have Windows that you think about like on a computer. We now have these new Surface devices. We have things like Windows Phone, which if you've been to AT&T or Verizon or Sprint or T-Mobile, you've probably seen the devices there as well. I know we do a couple of commercials around that as well, so it's certainly something people are aware of. But what people don't realize as you look at this entire ecosystem is that all of those devices are set up to work together. So a great example, and I don't know anything about your gaming experience in this room, but everybody's heard of the video game franchise Madden, right? It's a football program. And you can sit down and you can play a game of football with people online or whatever, but one of the cool things that I've found that all of these technologies are moving towards is how can I use multiple devices together and really enrich the experience. So with Madden, and this is a game I've played since I was in college, you have a set of football plays, right, that are up on the screen, and you choose one by moving a cursor around the screen and you pick one. The problem with that is that when I'm sitting in the same room with Tim, he can see the play I pick, so he knows exactly where my wide receivers are going to go. He knows it's a running play or whatever, and that's a hassle. But now you can take out your Surface or your phone or whatever, and instead of choosing it on the screen, you see your list of plays on your device. You secretly pick the thing that you want, and then it knows exactly what play you want, so you're not sharing with him that, by the way, I'm going to run to the right. Put your linebackers over there, right? Those are the kind of things that this kind of experience is coming to be. And like I was talking about earlier with the cloud, the stuff that I have on here immediately syncs to everything else, right? So all of my files and my music, if I download a song on my Surface, when I get in my car on the way home, that song's already on my phone, right? There's things like that that just all come together. And so as far as hidden features, there's a few things that I think are just really cool about Windows 8 that a lot of people don't know about. One of the big ones for me is how you search now. You've all searched inside software on your computers. One of the big things that was a huge delight for me was instead of having to open an application, wait for the thing to fire up, wait for all the data to load so that I can click in the search box and search for my data, the way Windows 8 is structured is there is search built into the operating system. And so much like you would search for files traditionally in Windows, now I can search for the data inside my application. So I cut the cord at home as a cable user. I don't have cable TV at home. I still have an internet connection through my cable company, but I don't have television. And so most of my television watching is done through either Hulu or Netflix. That's where we watch most of our television from. And one of the biggest frustrations and challenges that my wife and I have with this is that you want to watch a show, but you don't know which service has it. And so there's a Netflix app on my device, there's a Hulu app on my device, and I can go in and type in any TV show that I'm interested in watching. We'll do Walking Dead as an example. And I can just type that into the search box on my device. I can then tap on the Hulu app, and it'll bring up the search results for that. I can tap on the Netflix app, it'll bring up the results for that. And I don't have to go hunting and finding. It's as easy as saying, hey, I want to search this term in that app now. And if I want to take that and then search that on Bing, by the way, you can now Google with Bing in case anyone's looking to do that. That's a joke no one got, that's all right. Google is a verb, Bing is a service. Anyway.
All right,
So
Jeff, you're done.
All right, I'm all done.
All right, Tim. No, you did great, Jeff.
Thank you,
Really,
thank
really. I got to say that actually, but you did great.
Thank you.
No, I'm joking. Tim, let's talk about Android.
Yeah. So just to add to what Jeff said here real quick about the Windows 8 platform, that one of the things that I found amazing about it is it just knows. I'll talk about Android here in a second, but I logged in and I gave it my Google account and I gave it my Live account, and then suddenly I noticed it found all my pictures from all my like Flickr account and that sort of thing, and it just figured that out. So it's a really interesting experience. So Android now, so the Android experience from a phone perspective is pretty good. You still have issues with.
Sound real encouraging, but keep going.
Yeah. Well, so the issue with Android really is you have providers. It's open source. So providers and wireless companies and device manufacturers can take the UI and tweak it many different ways. I remember I had an Evo phone probably 3 years ago, and my wife had a Galaxy Epic. From a hardware perspective, they were the same phone, but one was HTC and one was Samsung. And I remember I picked up her phone and I was trying to do something, and I had to ask her how to do it, even though we're both running the same version of Android. It's gotten better over the last probably 2 years, but you still have issues where carriers and device manufacturers are tweaking the OS to kind of make the experience better or more tailored to that particular device, unlike iOS, where an iPhone is an iPhone is an iPhone, and with a Windows 8 or a Windows 7 phone, the experience is always the same. So it's a little frustrating from that perspective. But now, on the good side, there are companies out there like Samsung that are doing a fantastic job. The Samsung Galaxy Epic, which I have here in my pocket, this is an AT&T phone. This is the #1 Android phone on the market right now. And it is technologically superior to most devices out there, other than maybe the Nokia phone that just came out, which is a Windows 8 platform. It does some pretty amazing things, which Jeff has in his pocket right here. It does some pretty amazing things. One of the coolest features on here is how many people have a smartphone, and as they're using it, they're like reading an email and it shuts off the screen to save power. How many people does that happen to? Does it drive you crazy? So if you have this particular phone, there's a feature in here called Smart Stay, and it'll actually turn the camera on and look for your eyes. If it can make that match, it keeps the phone on. So it's a pretty cool feature.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now everyone's looking at their phones, so you don't do that now.
Yeah.
See Tim? No.
Yeah.
Damon, Apple. You're our Apple guy. So tell us what's going on.
You know, I was talking to Tim earlier, and I was telling him that I was an Android person before switching over to Apple. And the reason that I
say that too? No.
the reason that I switched was because when you buy an Android device, pretty much every manufacturer or every supporter like AT&T, carrier, stuff like that, they always want to put their own bloatware on it. And that irritated me because it uses battery, it's not configured right, and I wanted to get rid of it. So you have to go with the custom OSs, and then every time you want to upgrade those, you have to completely rebuild your phone from scratch, re-download all your apps, and reset everything, and I got tired of it. And so I went to Apple because Apple is very simplistic. When they upgrade, you don't have to rebuild your phone. And that's the one thing that Apple has always been very good at, is making a simplistic UI for everybody to be able to use. I mean, it's intuitive. Android and Microsoft, they're getting a lot better at that now. And the new Microsoft, the Windows 8, I'll give it some big props because it is nice. And across the board, when I can, use my Xbox, my phone, and a device, a computer or a Surface or whatever, and I can get all my applications and stuff like that across the board, that's great. And that's where they're beating Apple. But Apple still has probably one of the best interfaces, and they still have the best hardware. I've never seen Windows run any better than on a Mac. It is the truest statement I'll ever make. We run Macs in our office as well. We have a mixture of PCs and Macs. And my developers run Macs, but they still have to have Windows because some of the applications just aren't there on the Mac. So they run Parallels, they load up Windows into Parallels, and it runs better than any single computer in my organization. And I've got some pretty decent computers in my organization. And that's a funny and sad statement all at once.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the specific devices. We've done a little bit of that already. Tim's got a few props down there. I'm sure he's been wanting to show. Before we do that, but we're going to, and we're also going to talk about kind of what's hot and what's not. Hold on one second. My cell phone's ringing. I need to get it. I can't talk right now. David, this is your phone, actually. I actually had that phone. I did. This is, about maybe 15, I don't know, it's mid-'80s. Oh, so it's older than that. I'm not that old, David. All right, so enough prop. This is my prop right here. All right, so let's talk about devices. So, Tim, why don't you show a couple, and again, let's think about it. What's hot and what's not?
Sure. Okay, so there's a couple of different choices here. So these are Windows 8 devices. This is a Samsung device. And unlike what Jeff has, which is the RT, this is an actual full-blown PC. It has an i5 in it and a hard drive that's about 64 gigabyte. And you can run any program you can run in Windows 7 on this device the same way you could. The thing that I love about this is it has a lot of accessories that are like dock enabled. So I can literally dock this on my desktop, have it a full screen on the monitor, so the normal desktop in front of me, oops, and then I can have the Metro interface over here, so I can have like my email up, kind of hanging out beside me as I'm working. And this is powerful enough for you to actually develop code on. You know, so back before I got into management, I was a developer, so I still tinker around with code quite a bit, and you can actually do that. So I like this device. It's powerful enough to be a desktop replacement, and it's portable. It's great. So the other option is, so the only one bad part about this device, if you're the type of person that likes to put your laptop literally on your lap and work with it like in front of the television or what, this is not the device for you. The Surface really isn't either, because the kickstand thing and the keyboard cover, that really just doesn't work very well. So your second option here is, this is the Lenovo Yoga. Hold on here, I gotta turn it on here.
Everybody knows the Android guy is doing Windows.
Yeah, so funny story about that. My Android tablet, I had a Nexus 7, and I dropped it last week and cracked the screen, so I wasn't about to bring it all messed up here. But yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, as I'm logging in here, the Android tablet story is okay, but it's not as good as the iPad or the Windows 8 versions of it now. There are a couple of exceptions to that. The Samsung Note is pretty cool, but basically what they've done, if I can remember the password I actually put on here, that would be good. All right.
We do have a time limit.
I know, sorry. All right, anyways, so I can't. So like, anyways, so this is a normal laptop. So it has gesture and based touchpad, similar to how the Apple device has. But in addition to that, you can take this and flip it all the way around, and now you have a tablet form factor running Windows 8. And this is a 14-inch tablet, so it's a pretty big tablet. And it does all the touch sensitivity. And then the keyboard is on the back, and it actually turns all this off so you don't inadvertently touch it when you're doing things. So this is a great device, like I said, if you want to have a more traditional laptop, but also have a touch and a tablet experience.
Before we go on, this is actually another similar, I call them convertibles.
Yep.
Now this is older. It's only a year and a half old, but it's older. But essentially, it's also a tablet device as well. And the reason I got this device was because when the iPad started to become very popular, I'm not the average college student that wants to have 6 devices, right? I've tried to minimize the amount of devices I have, and so I want to have a laptop/tablet and then my phone. And so this has actually worked out really well. I'm actually looking at the one that Tim has as my next option, but it gives you the ability to have the flexibility to have a tablet as well as a laptop experience. And this is my working laptop that I use 24/7. All right, Jeff, you're up.
That was a little nod to his boss.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about the Surface, and Tim has certainly helped me kind of cue up the conversation I wanted to have about devices, which is if you want the device that fits you, I think Android does a good job of this as well, because there's, I think, 17,000 different Android tablets on the market.
About that, I
So
would
it's
say.
a little high or low. There's tons and tons of options, right? You have a tablet like that has the convertible flip screen. You have this that just folds in half. You have machines that can just add keyboards. The first device he showed here, this Samsung device, works really well. Well, they all really work well with Bluetooth. So you have a full tablet here, but when you want to sit down and work with a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, I have one set up over there, the same device. It works incredibly well. You don't need the keyboard all the time. Sometimes you want to put this thing in your lap. You close the kickstand, you drop it in your lap, and you're ready to go. And what I think we're finding is that there's a really big opportunity for us as users, as consumers of devices, to find the one that works best for us. It's hard for me to believe because I have 400 devices in my house. Honestly, it's sick. But when we look at what I do, like I talk to everybody and they're like, yeah, I sit with my iPad while I watch TV or when I'm just sitting on the couch or whatever. That is not a use case I ever do. Like if I'm sitting on the couch and I need information, I pull out my giant phone, and this is the banana phone at my house. My kids call it the banana phone. But this is my consumption on the couch device, right? Where a lot of other people really prefer the big iPad or tablet experience. And I think that's where Windows has done a pretty decent job of allowing anybody to run this on any device. Every laptop you guys are using today, every desktop you guys are using today, runs Windows 8 perfectly fine. And it'll work on everything. I don't necessarily recommend loading Windows 8 onto a machine that doesn't have a touchscreen. It works great. You can use a mouse and keyboard, but it is a little awkward. It's designed with touch in mind, not touch required, but certainly touch in mind. And so that's one little tricky problem I think they're still looking to work through.
Damon, what's hot, what's not?
Anything Apple's hot. Tablets are really the.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Tablets are really the big thing right now. Smartphones have been around for a while, and yes, they're still pretty hot. And we've got the Windows Phone that's just come out from Nokia. We've got the Android phone, and of course you've got the new iPhone 5. I'm not a big fan of the iPhone 5 because my thumb isn't as big as the screen. I don't know who thought about that, but my thumb doesn't stretch. So, it's a little bit too big. I keep having to go up and down like that, and it doesn't work. But tablets are just huge right now. Everybody is into tablets. You've got Amazon, they're making their own tablet, and the other bookstores making their own tablet, and then everybody else as well. I really love my iPad. I love it to death. And now you've got the new iPad mini, which is really, really hot because some people like that smaller format. I do use my iPad on the couch. I love the fact that HBO and some of these other TV companies are making interaction with TV shows, so I can be watching a TV show and get little extra clips and stuff playing on my iPad. That type of thing is great. I also think that what you're going to see coming up is interfaces, new types of interfaces, and I think that's going to be really hot. And that's where the future is going to be, is the changing of the interfaces. Because our smartphones and these tablets, they're already as powerful as most computers today, especially if they're an older computer by 2 or 3 years. So you're going to be able to do everything on that. It's just the interface isn't there for it yet. Touch is great, but we need a better interface for seeing things as well as interacting with those things.
Okay, we've got about 4 minutes, and then we're going to get to questions. So bear with us. That's okay. That's all right. Can you bring those cards up here? So Damon got a little bit into the future. So Jeff, why don't you talk a little bit more about where you see the market going, and then Tim, and then Dan will come back to you and wrap it up.
Okay. So I'll try and be brief. I'm going to talk about 2 things. One, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the cloud is huge, 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 and that's only going to continue to happen more and more. For those of you that have been in the technology industry for a long time, we were at a point 20 years ago where it was all really thin client devices, right? You had a mainframe sitting someplace, and we had a device that talked to that mainframe. The internet is now in that mainframe, right? Our devices are going to become simpler and simpler, and all of our internet data, everything is going to live out there, and we'll just access it directly, not even downloading it. We'll run it directly off of some server someplace. That's one thing that I see as part of the future. The other is, and I didn't know specifically what you meant by interfaces, but I think that when I look at how we're going to interact with devices, one of the biggest problems I have a phone here. In order for me to interact with this, I have to touch the screen. If I'm playing a game or I'm trying to edit something, my thumbs, my hands, something is covering part of the screen as I do this, and I can't see what's underneath. One of the things that Microsoft Research is working on, and I'm sure other companies are doing this as well, is looking at ways to solve that problem. Like Tim mentioned with the tracking of the eyes, I've seen some interfaces where you just look at the thing and it clicks it, right? Those are some things that are cool. Another one is make the back of the device the touch surface. So now I hold my phone like this and I move my fingers around like I would with a mouse. I'm not covering my screen ever, and I just tap the back of the screen or I move my fingers. Those are the kind of things I think you're going to see as we move into the future, is that we're going to have different ways to interact with these same devices that make them even better to use. So that's my little bit.
Very good. Tim?
Yeah, I think as we move closer into the future, I agree with Jeff. You're going to see, because of the cloud, a more connected world. And really the device you use, the platform you use, is going to be more about preference. And it's going to be more about your content moving from device to device and following you around. In addition to that, you know, I see the phone becoming more of a digital identity. You know, it's really everything you need. Like, you know, you're going to see interfaces with cars to where you literally go in and plug in your smartphone, and it's using that for internet and GPS and all that. You know, because it's really everything already about you. You know, I know people that would stop their car, turn around, and drive back if they forgot their cell phone before going to work. But if you forgot your wallet, you know, I can make do. So.
Because there's no money in your wallet. That's
Right,
what
right. Yeah. I just get John to take me out. That's what it is.
No, but that actually makes a good point, though. Tim and I both have phones that have a technology called NFC in them. And I actually gave a talk and wrote an article about this a little while back about how your phone is going to become your wallet, right? Like if Tim and I put our phones together, they'll start singing and making noise and stuff because we can communicate back and forth. When I go to McDonald's, you guys, some of you have a credit card you can just tap to pay. I can start using my phone to tap to pay, right? I have an entire object that has lived in my wallet for centuries, now gone. I don't need it. All of my data, all of my rewards cards, all my coupons, all the other stuff that I would normally keep in my wallet, all can live on your phone now. I think that's remarkable.
Yeah, and that's really where the future is going. You are correct. It is your digital life. It is your digital identification. And in the future, you're going to see that anywhere you go, your information will follow you, but you're going to be able to interact with things. So you're going to walk up to the store, and the windows are going to display information of maybe sales on items that are personal to you, that things that you know that people that you like, because your phone knows that you like that, or whatever device it is in the future that is going to store that information. Your clothing is going to become part of the device. You're going to be able to draw figures on your pants because your clothing can now interact. They're going to be able to put circuitry in your clothing. So there's going to be a whole host of ways to interact with these devices going forward. And as you do, there's going to be more and more information that it gathers, and that's going to be displayed no matter where you go. But that's also a scary thing, too. It is. But, you know, really, there's a lot of people that are all kinds of scared and saying, oh, you know, they're taking over our lives, they know too much about us, but we're letting them, you know, and that's the thing. The more information we put in, the more we shop on these devices, the more that we use them to pay bills and buy things at McDonald's and whatever, the more information they know about us, and that's our willingness to let them know.
Yeah, in addition to that, just to add a couple of things. One of the more trends you're going to see moving forward is around augmented reality. There are already phone apps out there that you can use your phone's camera and point it at something, and it'll give you more information about what's going on. So really augmenting the reality that's around you. Google, I think in their I/O conference this summer, they gave everybody prototype Google goggles, which are essentially wearable LCD interfaces that have that premise behind. Now, granted, you know, the glasses have a big cord hanging off of them. You got a big battery pack. The technology's not there yet, but I mean, they're already working on developing that for the future. So I wouldn't be surprised within the next 2 or 3 years that you'll see actual viable consumer devices that are wearable type user interfaces.
And see, I disagree on that because I think that augmented reality is not really where it's going. I think it's going to be the digital signage. As you walk down the street, everywhere you look, there's going to be a digital sign, and as you pass close enough, it's going to show you information that you might want to know about the place that you're passing by.
Yeah, I can see it going that way too.
It's got to go both ways, though, because I need to be able to read my Facebook on a billboard and while I'm driving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a very important thing, you know.
And that's why Jeff is in the middle.
Right.
Figure that out. Speaking of coolness, on my little iPhone 5, I watched my son's freshman basketball game on my phone from California through FaceTime. That was cool. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And he had a good game, by the way.
Awesome.
All right, so as promised, we will take questions from the audience. CMC records all of its forms for broadcast on YouTube, streaming on CMC's website and the Columbus Metropolitan Library website. While asking your question, please introduce yourself. We thank you in advance for not making long editorial comments. Let's take your, that's true. Let's take your first question.
Hi, Ann Loader with Loader Landscaping. You kind of alluded to it there at the end, but what is in development without, you know, alerting the enemies to keep all this data safe? I mean, you hear more and more about identity theft, and they're getting it because you used your phone to access your bank account at Starbucks, but that's where everybody's pushing us too, so.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I can start. So,
I think she was talking to you. Actually.
well, I think everybody has this issue, though. I mean, this is going to be across all platforms, all technologies. I think what you're finding is that, like I mentioned earlier, I can take a picture on my phone and immediately it's on a website. But that website and that content is completely locked down to me, right? I think one of the biggest problems that we forget, and I don't mean this as an insult to anyone that has had something happen to them, but often identity theft and getting your information taken was your fault. And it was either you put some information out there that you shouldn't have, or you chose to share some data with a service that wasn't maybe up to snuff. More often than not, you made the choice to give your data to someone, and that's usually the cause of identity theft. It's not to say that they didn't hack into some bank database and steal your stuff, but that's far less likely than, I'll use my mom as a perfect example. Every time I go home, she's got 19 toolbars in her browser. You guys have all seen someone like that, right? It's because she's just clicking on stuff, not really thinking about what that could mean or what that thing does. She just wanted to get the $5,000 coupon from Applebee's that doesn't really exist, right? So those are the kinds of things that when we look at this, it's about educating the consumer about how to be careful. I think that's where the problem really is. The data's locked down. It's encrypted. It's stored on servers that no one has access to. It's really much more about, it's an education process and getting people to understand when you click on this thing, you're not just clicking on it, you're also giving them your username or your whatever, right? So I think that's the bigger problem.
Tim or Damon, want to come?
Yeah, it's more about, just being smart in the digital world, right? Just make sure that the websites that you're giving your information to are real companies, right? And have a reputation, You can tell most of the time because they're HTTPS or VeriSign certified or that sort of thing. Although VeriSign did get hacked not too long ago, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, you just have to make sure that you're smart about who you give your information to. If something comes to you in an email where there's a coupon that's too good to be true or an offer that's too good to be true, it's probably because it came from someplace in overseas, and it is too good to be true. So.
The other thing that people forget is about their passwords. A lot of people are using the same passwords for a lot of different things, and that's really the biggest point of entry for people is if they can guess one password, if they can guess your email password, then they can guess your bank password. Or what they do is if they get into your email, they change the password on your email, and then they start going out to other websites and saying, I forgot my password. And what does that do? It sends the password to the email address. So you've got to use a different password for all of your different things that need to be secured. And with password managers these days, they'll make up passwords for you, store them securely, so there's no reason really not to do that.
Right, but all of that stuff comes down to education. My mom doesn't even realize a password manager exists, let alone why she should use one, right? It's that I can guarantee you her password is the name of her dog. Promise you that. Yeah. And so that...
This is being recorded, Jeff.
I know. And she lives here, and here's her social, and yeah. So, but I mean that's a legitimate problem, though. It comes down to education.
Very good. Okay, second question, sir.
Yes, my password manager are a bunch of Post-its under my keyboard, but I'm Ken Thompson. I'm an architect, and contrarian viewpoint, 400 devices, Jeff.
It's not.
Okay, but how many landfills are you filling up? How many landfills? What are you guys doing to recycle? Where's the battery going when I'm tired of this one? Where's the phone going when I'm tired of this one? I'm aware there's some recycling company up in Dublin that does smartphone recycling, but that stuff really, it's an environmental nightmare, it seems like.
It absolutely is.
And then second, where are our thumbs going? Are there, carpal tunnel things going on with thumbs that I haven't heard about yet? Do I need to be doing special exercises?
I got some exercise for you. Go, Tim, why don't you take that?
Yeah. So first question, I'm in Jeff's boat. I think I have about 100 devices, not 300, but 100. And, as things go away, I usually donate them. Or I'll give them to family members, and I'll make sure that they know when they're absolutely done with them that we need to donate them so they don't end up in a landfill. So you have to be smart about it. I mean, one of the worst things is, and I'm a big culprit of this, is I've got probably 8 printers sitting in my attic because every time you print your taxes, you know, it's cheaper to go buy a new printer than it is to buy an ink cartridge. So, you know, I'm an offender there. And then as far as, like, you know, the carpal tunnel with the thumbs go, I mean, I don't know. I think it's more about it. The more you text, probably the more you get used to it. I haven't run into an issue with it.
Right, but I think in 25 years we're going to have an epidemic of 40-year-olds.
Could be.
With
arthritis in
yeah,
your
just
thumbs,
can't.
right? Yeah.
As far as my device situation goes, I think I'm the same way as Tim. I have this really nice cedar trunk thing that lives in my office. And if you open it, you will find probably 25 laptops of some shape, form, of age. Some of them are 10 years old. I haven't really gotten rid of a lot of my computers. As far as batteries go, and I can't encourage all of you enough to do this, there are a ton of amazing organizations that take cell phones and do great, great things with them. They give them to women at risk that just, it's not a phone, it doesn't have service, but any cell phone, I don't know if you guys realize this, any cell phone you find that was made in the last 15 years, you can pick it up, dial 911, it'll work. And so for someone that needs an emergency style device like that, and you're getting rid of a phone, give it to an organization like that, because there are people that could really use stuff like that. But in addition, they're starting to use older devices for education in classrooms. These can become remote controls for students in a classroom in an elementary school. So when a teacher asks the questions, the kids can see on the screen. There's 4 choices. I think it was Abraham Lincoln. Those are the kinds of neat things that can be done with old devices, even if they're not the newest, shiniest thing.
And there's plenty of places around Columbus and Ohio, period, that do recycling for free. So there's really no reason to be setting them out and putting them out with the trash. And that doesn't just mean computer equipment. That's any electronic equipment. So your VCRs and DVD players that have been sitting there for years. Most places will also take TVs, but it'll cost you, and they normally charge around maybe $10 an inch, something like that. But it's still worth it to get rid of it. But there's really no reason not to recycle devices that can't be used in any other way.
Hi, my name is Xenia Palos. On behalf of the few people who know me in this room, I think they're very frightened to know that they might be able to read my mind at some point in the future. As we get smarter with technology, and we refer to them as smartphones, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are, or what anybody's thoughts are about how much smarter we as a society are. Because I've become so reliant on my smartphone to remember phone numbers, and I used to remember everybody's phone numbers. But I'm just kind of curious if you have some commentary about, are our devices smarter than us and making us dumber, or what?
Actually, I just read an article about a study that they were doing, and yes, the answer is that we are getting dumber. We're less innovative now than we were 50 years ago, and we're not quite as smart as we were 50 years ago, because there are so many things that do things for us that we don't have to think about it anymore. Computers are figuring things out for us, so we don't have to do that anymore, and it is really a problem.
I think there are certain areas where that becomes a real problem, especially with math. I have a daughter that's in 3rd grade, and she is aware a calculator exists, but we're working through learning multiplication and addition and stuff. I think there are fundamental building blocks that contribute to education. If you don't know how to do simple multiplication, you're not going to just figure out calculus, right? Those are things that you're just not going to be able to do. On the flip side, though, I don't need to know anything about the Civil War anymore. I mean, I need to know it existed and it's an important historical event, but ultimately, when I want to know something about the Civil War, I can go look that up. And I think that it's augmenting our knowledge. It's making knowing stuff less important, and it's making being able to solve problems and being able to find the answer and do research far more important. And I think ultimately, if this pushes people to learn how to do research better, how to solve problems, those are the people we want to hire anyway, right? Someone we can bring in and they're going to solve problems on day one, not the person that we have to teach them a whole bunch of facts so they can recite them back to someone else again. Those are the skills that we really want anyway. So whether or not someone knows something about some historical event or how to translate something into French, I don't know that necessarily hurts us. I think that allows them to spend more cycles on things that might be more important.
Let's go ahead and take one more question, I think. Yep.
Hi, Shane Schaefer. I'm asking a question on behalf of my 13, almost 14-year-old. I have not allowed her to be on Facebook or Twitter, but it seems like this Instagram in that age group is blowing up. Is that okay? I just saw some security measures this morning on Good Morning America about, using the pictures? Should I get her off of it? I don't know. I can honestly tell you, I don't know anything pretty much about that. It just seems to be it's the kid thing right now.
Sure. Let me take actually this one, because I have a 15-year-old, and this became an issue with some of my nieces and nephews. And so my philosophy is you don't want anything on the internet. You don't type anything that you'll be embarrassed on, right, that gets into Columbus Dispatch in any way, shape, or form. And then you also need to make sure that your children are posting stuff that won't embarrass them or won't embarrass you, right, or won't get them in trouble. So I mean, I think we as parents have actually a greater responsibility now than we used to, because that proliferation of that ability to do that is so much greater, and you got to watch it very, very closely, because one of my nephews posted an illegal plant on the and that caused a whole firestorm within the family that's still brewing as we speak. So I mean, the bottom line is that you as parents, or we as have to be more diligent than we have ever have been before, because employers, we check that stuff, right? Yes.
Everyone in this room, if you've hired someone, you've done a Google search on them first, right? That's something you've done. And you're going to look and you're going to see, is their Facebook account, is that available? Can I go see what's in there? You want to see if they've got drunken pictures in Cabo or whatever the thing is, right? So to answer the question directly, though, I have an 8-year-old daughter. She's begging for a phone. She's not getting one until she gets to middle school. That's the end of that conversation. But when we talk about a device, she has a device today. It's a glorified iPod Touch, right? She can play games, she can do that kind of stuff, but it has a camera and it can take pictures. And one of the things that I was really conscious of is I don't want her posting things to the web. I don't want her taking pictures of herself. And at 8 years old, I trust her. I know that she's going to be smart about it. I'd like to think anyway. But kids don't always understand what that really means when you say, I'm going to push this image to the internet. And so it's locked down. It can't do that. She can take pictures, but they can't leave the device. And I think that's a really important thing to think about. I think that Twitter is far safer than letting them have an Instagram account, for example, where they can just take a picture of anything. And at 13 years old, 14 years old, when you start trying to impress boys or do other stuff, there's some questionable things that can show up in a photo, right? So it's important to really have, if it's a one-to-one relationship, though, right? You have to talk to your kids, you have to trust them, you have to know them. I don't want to lock things down until I have to, but at the same time, you have to know your kid and know what they're going to do. It's important.
Yeah, go ahead. Does it go to you, Rich?
Or Jane?
Hey, Rich, guess what?
What?
We have a surprise, and I want to ask Rex and Jared just to stand up, and the folks from Proforma, and I want you all to get your forum flyer out and take a look at the announcement that says, get CMC's app with the QR code, which 2 months ago I didn't know what that was, so I'm catching up too. And I want you all to thank these folks because they developed, as a gift to the Metropolitan Club, a new CMC app. Yay. Now, how easy is this to load? I know nothing about it. I've never loaded an app until 20 minutes ago, where I sat down, registered for the first time, and downloaded this sucker, and I have everything CMC on my phone now, including last week's forum on YouTube. So thank you all very much. These guys worked really, really hard, first of all, to convince us to do it, and then second of all, to develop it so that it's a real tool for all of us. And you can also join CMC today, right now.
Well done, Jane. Thank you, gentlemen. That was the surprise that I kept skipping over. I hope you all enjoyed today's program. I certainly have. It is a strange new world. A kickstand was something that was on my Huffy bike. And you're right about research. We just essentially tore out our law firm library. We have smaller little units around the firm, but most of the research is done. So all those beautiful books are available if anybody wants to fill up their library. Again, you can see as Jane indicated, you can see us on YouTube. The link is on our website. Be sure to put the January 9 CMC Forum on your calendar and make your reservations ASAP. We're going to hear from Bill Lafayette on how we're going to be doing next year in the in or over the fiscal cliff. I want to invite you to continue today's conversation out in the lobby with coffee and cookies. You can talk to these guys. When you do that, though, please return your name tags, and if you'd like more information that you can't find on our new app, stick your business card in the returned name tag. We want to keep things green. Once more, I want to thank everybody for their participation today. Tim, Damon, John, and Jeff. So I thank you all. We appreciate all this information, and we have one more comment. Oh yeah, we got the prize,
You get
which
to draw. You get to draw. Dig down deep.
All right, it's Rich Terapak. Shane Schooler? Yeah. Schaefer, sorry. Thanks for filling it out, and thanks to AT&T. Thank you all for being here. Come back often, and please have happy and safe holidays. Thank you.